got a job in tech in about 2 months with no college degree.
Correct. Depending on the requirements of the organization, you don't have to know a lot of, the tech things like coding, cloud, and all that good stuff. A lot of it, depending on where you go, is just, wow. I just remember that there was this guy with a McLaren. He asked the guy, hey, what do you do? What degree do you have to get into that? And he said, oh, what I do, you don't need a degree in. I said, okay, I could be driving that type of vehicle without a degree. I think probably that day I might have applied to 100 places. It was a breath of fresh air and understanding that pretty much my life was going to change.
So, Omari, I want to start the story with picking up in when you were in insurance. So tell us the story when you walked into, I don't know if you're walking into an office, walking into your home office at in front of a laptop. Insurance, how did that happen? How did you decide to start there? Tell us that story.
Yeah, so it was more so me looking for a better role at the time. I want to say this was around December of 2016. So I was 25 at the time because I was at some point going to school. I was working part-time and I kind of got stuck in a part-time role at the job that I was at, working customer service for a bank. And then a few friends let me know that there was a full-time opportunity available with Blue Cross Blue Shield, health insurance. So they referred me and, I applied and got the job pretty fast, but it was more so just looking for a full-time opportunity. And the bump in pay was a bonus as well. So that's how I got my foot into insurance. It was really just looking for a better opportunity for myself to work a full-time role.
So was there always a thought that, hey, this is just something to get me into a full-time role until I look for something better, or was your goal to stay in insurance?
So initially the goal was to stay in insurance, and it was more so understanding that I have a background that does not include a college degree. So I'll be pretty limited in understand that, wherever I'm at, it would probably be the easiest to work from the ground up, in whichever organization I decide to work at. So with Blue Cross Blue Shield coming in as a provider representative. So instead of the typical customer service, where you're dealing with the members. So if you call in and you have questions about your health insurance, what do you qualify for? What's your copay? There's another side to that deals primarily with the provider. So the doctor's offices, the dentists, their billing partners. So that was the side that I was actually working on, which was a little bit more transactional than what you would typically think of customer service, where you have to have empathy and, build rapport with your client. And whatnot. So my goal was to initially start there, learn the role, learn the rest of what, health insurance was and is, network, within Blue Cross Blue Shield, and just overall just build experience because, generally speaking, when you don't have a degree, you do have to have some type of experience to supplement that. Right. So that was initially my goal, just to start from the ground up and try to become something within the health insurance industry.
Okay. So tell us how did the idea of tech come into play? Because it sounds like you're moving forth there. You had a plan specifically around insurance. What did who planted the seed of, hey, maybe you can pivot into tech? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so it was a very random Instagram post actually that I saw, and I want to say maybe 2020. So there's this creator. I don't think I follow him anymore, but he was the kid who would go around, see people with nice cars and ask, hey, what do you do for a living? Do you have a degree? How do I get into that space? What type of car is this? So he would go, I think he lived in like Hollywood or LA, some place where there's a lot of nice vehicles, right? And he's going up to everybody. And one of his posts was around people who didn't have degrees. So I just remember that there was this guy with a McLaren, and it's a vehicle worth $250,000. And he asked the guy, hey, what do you do? He said security. He said cybersecurity. And then he asked, okay, well, what degree do you have to get into that? And he said, oh, what I do, you don't need a degree in. So right when he said that, I said, okay, I could be driving that type of vehicle without a degree. Okay, let me see what cybersecurity is about. So my initial interest was actually cybersecurity. So I bought, books, the series, whatever for dummies. Bought a whole bunch of books and started to study that while I was working. So, during lunch breaks at this time, I actually transitioned. I was working at GEICO. So still within insurance, but just a different realm. So instead of health insurance, auto insurance, um, and even there, I worked a few different roles. I worked as a sales agent. I worked within customer service. I also worked as a claims analyst, a claims analyst, just trying to learn as much as I can to build up more experience, to just make myself more all around as I try to, shoot up within the company. But again, understanding that there's still kind of that, I want to say, ceiling when it comes to folks without degrees or
Right.
college degrees specifically, of course, um, to just grow within the company. So once I saw that post, I just told myself, okay, this needs to be something I need to look into to better, my quality of life and where I was at. So it was an Instagram post.
Okay. So you're doing this now. You're reading books. You're in tech, and so it's the mindset. Hey, I'm going to take this knowledge and I'm going to still stay within the company and try to build up since I'm here. Or was there ever a thought, okay, I'm looking for jobs while I'm doing this? What were you thinking around that?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both, right? So I, of course, realized that many organizations like to hire internally. So if you happen to meet, certain at least minimum qualifications, you have you're a step ahead of many other people who would be looking to interview and get hired externally, right? So I definitely was looking for both, um, but ideally, I did want to overall work outside of insurance. But I did also understand that, again, experience is key. So if I was able to start my journey at GEICO, that would be fine with me. And then I know that as I build that experience, more doors would open.
So how does PSA come into your story? If you're already you're going down this path of cybersecurity, how do you join, which is for the audience, PreSales Academy? How does that come into your story? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So at this point, I would have to, bring in a guest character in this story, which is one of my best friends, Michael. And at the time, he had left his job. He was an accountant, so he had a degree in accounting, but he was not satisfied with his job. So he had left his role, and at the time, he was looking for something, but he wasn't 100% sure what it was. In the meantime, he even actively right now, he's a photographer, videographer, so that's something that he has a passion in. So he was doing that to pretty much, pay the bills, keep the lights on at the time, but still understanding that as he's just getting started, it's kind of hard to build, clientele and have
Mm-hmm.
enough to, pay the things that you need to pay. So I presented him the idea, hey, I'm trying to transition into tech. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I'm still not 100% sure, what avenue I want to go down as of right now is cybersecurity. But if we happen to find something that might be, let's say, a little bit easier or more, resonates or matches more with our experience, by all means, I'm open for it. So
Mm-hmm.
as I presented that to him, he found a group called Black Men in Tech. They have a website that you could subscribe to their group for free, but they also provide a lot of different resources. So free courses, free programs, some of which you have to pay for, of course. And it was actually Michael who presented me the link to PreSales Academy. By the time he presented it to me, he had already applied and got accepted. But as I kind of went through, what the life of a pre-sales consultant or engineer, however you prefer to say it, what that entails, the overall experience that you need, I realized that, okay, some of, what comes with being a solutions engineer, I already kind of have, right?
Right.
I've worked in customer service, so you need to have that empathy piece. I worked as a claims analyst, and part of that is asking questions to understand things like who's at fault with a particular, you know, automobile accident, right? So there's that discovery piece, me needing to drill down, ask follow-up questions to find a solution here. And then as a solutions engineer, you're working within a sales cycle. And I was an insurance sales agent. So to me, I felt like I had a lot of experience that spoke to what is a solutions engineer. So from that, I said, okay, this actually seems like something I can get into. I went ahead and applied. Initially, they told me that I might be too late for the cohort that, my friend Michael was with. I still went through the interview process. Um, and they went ahead and said, hey, we do actually have one more spot for you. Let's go ahead and bring you in. So that's how I actually got into the pre-sale side. It was through my friend Michael.
All right, yeah, and I'm gonna come back to that story, but just for the what is give us a little more detail. What actually is a pre-sales engineer, or sales engineer, solutions consultant? There, a bunch of different titles. What is that? Just give us a brief definition of what that title is.
Yeah. So what I like to say is, well, I like to call myself first a solutions engineer.
Okay.
Because every time you say sales engineer, people automatically just think you must keep in mind you are part of the sales cycle.
Mm-hmm.
However, you are not a sales representative. You're not a salesperson. So I like to first identify myself as a solutions engineer because our job is to identify solutions or, work with clients from a technical standpoint, hear the bottlenecks, the pain points that they have, pretty much engineer solutions for, the pain points that they have within their processes, and then create something that best demonstrates how our software or how whatever it is that we're selling can meet their solution requirements as far as what they need to take their solution to the next step and reach that ideal state.
Okay. So you go, so this pre-sales academy, that's considered, I guess that would be considered like a boot camp, because I hear a lot of that online about boot camp stuff.
Yes, I would put it into the category of a boot camp.
Okay. And so what are they teaching you when you go here? Like, you have no understanding about, you have some transitional and transferable skills, I would say, getting into this role. It's one reason that you went that way. What are some of the key components in this boot camp that they teach you, and how long is the course? I guess the class, the cohort that you went through.
Yeah. So initially, because they have changed the structure of the program, it was 2 weeks. So it was broken up into the first 4 months. We're essentially just learning the foundation of what a solutions engineer. So a solutions engineer is, excuse me. So a lot of that is understanding, okay, what part of the sales process do we actually belong in, which would be the pre-sale side. So just before the actual sale is made, how to ask questions, how to, navigate through discovery, certain things that you may hear from a client and then know when to drill down to ask further questions. As well as there was a demo to win course that teaches you how to demo. So you have to know tell, show, tell loops. You have to know how to create presentations that resonate. You need to know, okay, if I'm going to include maybe a customer story or statistic that best supports to show how our solution can be of value to, this organization. And here's some stats to prove that, where to even put that within your presentation to have it resonate the most. So a lot of it was a lot of general information. Again, just kind of learning at a very base, like foundational level, what a solution engineer is, because a lot of people don't know what a solutions engineer is, or it's become a little bit more popular within the last couple of years. But like when I first got into it, I never heard of pre-sales, solutions engineer, sales engineer, solution architect. I never heard of any of it. So a lot of people going into it, they didn't know what it was, but they saw an opportunity to transition into tech, into something that wasn't as, what a lot of people like to say, techie. Right. So not every time, what's kind of, I don't want to say a certified scrum master, but that's also like another role that's not considered tech. You don't have to know tech. You just have to know like a framework as far as management goes. Mm-hmm. But depending on the organization that you work for, you don't have to know coding, which at the time I was learning Python, but that's not something that is as relevant in my role today. So just depending on where you land, depending on the requirements of the organization, you don't have to know a lot of, again, of the tech things like coding, cloud, and all that good stuff. A lot of it, depending on where you go, is just active listening, um, knowing how to solve problems. So problem solving is definitely a significant piece of it. Communicating, I guess public speaking, because you have to do these presentations all the time. And then also that kind of building rapport and empathy piece as well. Right. So a lot of, I'd say that those were a lot of the main things that you learned from the PreSales Academy.
Omar, I'm curious with these boot camps, especially now being 2025. Do you feel, and you might have to answer this question, you might not, do you feel they're still relevant with AI? Because I hear a lot about our course, how the course, situation and all that's going to change. And I would assume, was this a self-paced? This wasn't self-paced. This was an actual person meeting with you on a daily, helping you through this process?
Yeah. So we had classes 2 to 3 times a week for about
Okay.
an hour and a half. I'd say it's difficult when you bring AI into it, even though it is very helpful. I use AI all the time. It helps makes even my job easier when trying to understand clients, summarizing transcripts from calls that we have, or even just creating formulas that I might need to use within a particular environment for a demonstration. I think the more that people learn about just in general what a solutions engineer is, and it could even come from AI, right? You can learn a lot of what the PreSales Academy teaches from AI. However, there is always the demo aspect of it, right? Somebody to tell you, hey, people typically think that like certain things resonate more here. Here are certain words, or here are certain things that you need to listen for and drill down into. So I still do think that having some type of mentor that is an actual person is certainly helpful. Having them listen to you, guide it, even just how you talk, right? I think a lot of the human aspect is still helpful, but AI can certainly assist with that. What I will say is I went to Afrotech last year, and a huge focal point of that was AI. And what I learned from it, because I was somewhat reluctant to using AI prior to Afrotech until I wish I can remember who it was, but they essentially said that AI is never going to replace you. However, somebody who knows how to use AI will replace you. So it's important to kind of work with AI. So I wouldn't say just rely solely on AI. You still need that human aspect, that human piece to it, but certainly utilize AI to your advantage.
So you're in this situation. You're in this boot camp. How long was it again?
2 months.
2 months. Okay. So is there a process after you get out of them? I would assume of them helping you find employment, or are you kind of on your own? Walk us through that journey, because that's where everything kind of meets, right? Okay, I got this information. A lot of people have information. Now, how do you apply this to the marketplace and see if I have value here? So walk us and tell us a story about looking for employment. How did that work for you after you got the certificate?
Yes. So another piece that I forgot to mention as far as what's learned in the PreSales Academy is how to interview.
Okay.
What do the interviews typically look like? And then you work with a mentor who they pretty much are your interviewer. And a lot of these folks, the mentors, these are people who are in high places within the pre-sales industry. So a lot of these people are actually doing real interviews at their jobs. So they're able to ask questions that they would typically ask if you're interviewing for their job. So you get a very authentic feel, and then they grade you afterwards. They tell you some things that they like to hear, some things that you should say, some things that you should avoid saying. So before you even reach the finishing line in PreSales Academy, that's one of the things that they grade you on, right? So, and if you fail or you don't make the cut the first time, you get a second try. So the goal within PreSales Academy is really to learn and practice, right? If you mess up the first time, they don't just say, hey, you got to figure it out. No, let's run it back and, iron out the wrinkles and make sure that we get things at least close to perfect. So you're able to handle these new interviews, because the pre-sales interviews, the just overall tech space, like the interviews are different, right? A lot of it is, give us an example of when you did this, which is a lot of, organizations or interviewers already do that. But it's going to be something different. It's not going to be like a behavioral question or, example. It's going to be, give us a time where there was this technical thing that you solved and what happened there. So you have to be prepared to handle and pivot, right, within these conversations. And PreSales Academy definitely helped with that. Now, once you reach that finish line, there's still a lot of resources that they have. They have, connections in a lot of places. Now, keep in mind, it's not a place that, once you're done, then there's automatic job placement.
Right.
Right. They help you to find different roles. What is it that you're looking for? Is there a specific industry that you would like to look into? Like for me, I was just trying to get my foot in the door, put me wherever where, again, I could gain the experience I need, work. And then if I need to go somewhere later on down the line, I have the experience to now, use to my advantage to go to a place that I prefer to work at. Luckily, I like working at Smartsheet, so I'm good here. But they create profiles for you. You get introduced if they have any like PreSales Academy events and you're in town for it. They make sure to showcase you, to highlight you, to introduce you to different folks. And even during the interview process, for example, there was one client, actually not one client. That's my pre-sales. My solution engineer talk. But there was one organization that I applied to. I was in the interview process, and luckily, they knew about the pre-sales process. They knew Maddie. They knew you. So they knew everybody, basically. Once I said it, they were like, "Oh yeah!" And just them knowing that, I just got pushed along into the process. I got to meet with the hiring manager. They ended up hiring internally, but I was still able to go through that full process thanks to their networking. Even when I was in the interview process for Smartsheet, I worked with Maddie specifically. So she was actually my advisor during that 8-week process and beyond that. So, when I was I got through my interviews pretty easy. I'm usually a pretty social person. I know how to speak to people, lighten up the mood. So it doesn't feel as much of an interview as it does a conversation, right? So I was able to get past the interview. Once I got to the point where I needed to now do a demo for Smartsheet, I was able to do dry runs with Maddie. And this is another thing where, going back to what I mentioned about AI, how sometimes, people can say, like these little nuances, hey, even though I know you want to put this statistic here, put this statistic over here instead. And that's when I realized I need to listen more, because I didn't listen to Maddie. And even though, of course, I got the job, I think there might have only been like one thing that they criticized during my demo interview. And it was where I put the statistic. And they said, hey, you should have put it here, would have resonated more. Now it's exactly what Maddie told me, but I just decided to go rogue and do what I wanted. Again, luckily it didn't cost me the role. But that's just one of those things where it's something so small, but having her as a resource, having PreSales Academy as a resource to still support you, along the journey of trying to get hired, was huge.
So it sounds like your process, like your interview process, is not like a lot of individuals that I'm hearing now. From when did you get done with the bootcamp, PreSales Academy?
May 27th, 2022.
And when did you get a job?
June 10th, 2022. So it was 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks after you finished, you got a job.
Yes, but keep in mind, so I didn't want to wait to the end. So I was applying for places maybe 4 weeks in. So halfway into the academy, I was already applying for places. And there was one company, separate from the one that I mentioned, that again, Maddie was helping me with this. I went through the full interview process. I spoke with the recruiter. I then spoke with the hiring manager. I then spoke with the CEO. It was a startup. And then I was asked to do like a presentation around their software. In the end, I didn't get the role, but for whatever reason, that lit a fire under me I think probably that day I might have applied to 100 places. I was like, you know what? I can take this as like a loss and be down about it. But on the flip side, I now know what the full process looks like.
Right.
I spoke to every level. So I'm more confident that the next time I do this, I'm going to get it right because I know what it all looks like now. So I applied to so many places, just knowing that I'm gonna get somewhere. And then I think the first interview that I had with Smartsheet was before May 27th. So it was before the end of the academy. By the time the academy ended, I might have, I think by that time I would have already had my panel interview. So the next thing was to have my demo. My demo was actually on June 10th. So a few hours later is when I actually got the call that I was hired.
Wow. I want to dive a little bit deep into your job search process because you said you applied to 100. Like once you didn't get that initial position, what was that day-to-day process? Was this just going on LinkedIn, on a job board, submitting applications?
It was everything. It was LinkedIn. It was Indeed. It was Glassdoor. There's a few other, I can't remember them now because it's been so long, but there were a few other job board sites that are specific for tech roles. Excuse me. So I was applying there. There's also, again, I can't remember now, but there are, sites that are specific to tech startups. So if you're looking to join a tech startup, there's sites that have a whole bunch of listings just for those companies. So I was applying all over the place. As I talk there's just other things I just remember that the academy helped me with, which was creating a resume. The way that they had the resume structured was very different, not traditional. So it wasn't like, here's a header at the top, some of my contact information, and then, your experience in a chronological order. It was, on the side, these are the jobs I've worked. Here are some high level skill sets that I have that are relevant to to being an SE. And then let me just kind of in bullet points list the things that I did across all of my jobs that align with, that specific skill set. And then the second skill set, do the same thing. Third skill set, do the same thing. So it was definitely an unconventional resume, but it also kind of helped stand out if you actually saw the resume. So that was definitely another thing that I felt helped me to stand out. But yeah, once you pretty much have that resume, it's just uploading, submitting. Of course, you have to put in some details. There are those horrible sites that when you go in, you submit your resume, but then it still asks you to, hey, still fill in, your experience. We all can't stand that, but we got to do it. But it was just nonstop. I would go to a coffee shop about a block or two away from me and just go to work, get my latte, and I'm just applying away. So I won't say I applied to 100 within a day, but definitely over the course of a week, I certainly applied to, I'd imagine 100 roles, 100 jobs.
Tell us the feeling like when you got the offer. I don't know if it was an email or a phone call, but what was that feeling when you got the job offer?
It was a breath of fresh air. I think at the time, I moved away from my family. So especially during COVID, we were locked down. I'm originally from New York City. I lived in Buffalo, New York forever. Now I live in Houston, but for a long time I lived in Buffalo, New York. So I wasn't able to see my family for like over a year and a half, 2 years, um, due to COVID. So I took some time. I left GEICO and for a few months, and was able to visit my family, but then came back to Buffalo. I was like, okay, I need a role. The role that I was able to get was more of a, like, it's something to pay the bills now. It was insurance, but it was just from a career professional standpoint, a financial standpoint, it was definitely a few steps back from what I had. So for one, getting into tech, which was something that I aspired to do. It was a breath of fresh air, but also now I'm not at a job that I don't want to be at. That job was definitely more of something that was just necessary versus desired. And I now had a role that was 100% remote. So the things that I wanted to do, that I envisioned as far as traveling goes, I now knew that I would be able to do that. And then also from the financial piece, it was a huge bump. So I knew that I could also afford to go to the places that I wanted to go and see the things that I wanted to see. So it was a breath of fresh air and understanding that pretty much my life was going to change for the better in so many different ways.
If I'm hearing this right, you got a job in tech in about 2 months with no college degree.
Correct. So also some things to mention. I did take I was a certified AWS cloud practitioner. So I did take that course. I had that certification. I had a little bit of knowledge as far as the Scrum framework, like the Agile methodology. I didn't have my CSM as of yet. That's something I got while I was at Smartsheet. But just knowing the framework, having some type of knowledge around project management, that definitely helped me get into Smartsheet, because Smartsheet is its bread and butter is project management. It's a collaborative work management software that's primarily used for managing projects. So that definitely helped as well. So yeah, I'd say a lot of things in tech are not about a college degree. It's certainly about what you can show. And a lot of that can be shown through specific certifications that are geared towards, very specific things. And not to mention, I do want to highlight this as well. Smartsheet at the time had an academy. So their academy was specifically meant for people transitioning into tech that wanted to become SEs.
Wow.
Right. So at the time, and this is why when people ask me like, hey, should I do this? Should I do that? And I tell them my story, I always acknowledge that I got in at a perfect time.
Yeah.
I'd say the marketplace wasn't as oversaturated as it is today.
Yep.
It was a hidden gem at the time. Like nobody, again, me coming in, I didn't know what an SE was until PreSales Academy let me know what it was. There was a Smartsheet Academy. There was an Okta Academy. There was a Salesforce Academy. There were a lot of organizations that were having academies specifically for either, new graduates or people just looking to transition into tech. So it was a very lucky time. I even say the fact that, when I was interviewing to get into PreSales Academy and they were telling me, hey, we might not be able to start you in April. We might have to start you in June. Me being able to even start in April when they were going to have me start in June was one of the luckiest things ever, because Smartsheet Academy was hiring. They started their hiring process in May. So had I had to, start PreSales Academy in June, I might have missed that bus. So I'd say a lot of me being where I'm at today was about just perfect timing.
All right. Well, I'll end with this one. And I'm curious now, since you said the timing, and I totally agree with that. And as far as timing, today, I'm pretty sure you might get people, you may not get people to reach out to you and ask for advice in regards to transitioning into tech. You just mentioned sharing your story. Marketplace now, 2025, is completely different. Boot camps, you've heard that a lot. You mentioned a lot of YouTubers have mentioned that. That's been a while for quite some time now. And I think there's a transitional period, especially now. And we'll see how AI plays a part in all of this. But if you were on the side of coaching someone now and getting them into tech, what are you doing with them? Are you still taking the boot camp route? What are you doing with them today in 2025 with the current marketplace to help them break into tech?
So again, I would utilize AI. I would also utilize people's experiences. So talk to people. There's certain books. I wonder. Oh no, they're in the other room. But there's certain books that even I read that I'd have to go into my other room to give you the names of them. But there's three specific. I know one of them is Demo to Win. Yeah, I would have to let you know later. But there's two other books that one of them puts you in the mind. It's basically almost like a autobiography of a solutions engineer, where they're going through their process, how they speak and work with their sales reps, what discovery looks like, but also more importantly, the thoughts that are going on in their head. So you get to go inside the mind of an SE. So there's a lot of resources that are just people writing books of their experiences and things that we can certainly learn from. One of the people who came in and was like a guest speaker at the PreSales Academy, he wrote Demo to Win. So even though I had bought the book, he taught us everything in person, right? So as I started to read the book afterwards, I was like, he literally told me all of this. So I don't need to read this book anymore. So I just have it to have it. But yeah, utilizing resources. And I'll say most importantly, and I want to bring up my friend Mike again, because I always tell this story. I think it's important because just once you get to the end of the story, you'll realize why. So we had both applied to Workday, and we both got rejected. Now me, I'm like, all right, on to the next. Right. I'm trying to get in. I need to find a way to get in. I think at the time I was applying for SeatGeek, and I'm a Kevin Durant fan for those who watch basketball, and he was playing for the Brooklyn Nets at the time. And they had a sponsorship deal with the Brooklyn Nets. So you would get cheaper tickets through SeatGeek. So I'm like, okay, if I get to SeatGeek, I'll have the time of my life, because I could always go ahead and see one of my favorite players for the low. But that I don't even think I ever got a rejection email. I just never got any response back. But what he did is, after he got his rejection email from Workday, he ended up seeing one of the recruiters post something. So he messaged the recruiter, asked, hey, can I have a conversation with you, get on a Zoom call? The recruiter was very receptive, and it's like, yeah, sure. So he got on the Zoom call with the recruiter. The recruiter enjoyed the conversation with him, and basically brought his application back to life, pushed it through, even though it was initially rejected. I started Smartsheet August 1st of 2022. He started at Workday August 15th, 2 weeks later. So after he had initially got rejected, networking, I always say networking is key, especially if you want to stand out. In his case, it literally brought, his interview process, his hiring process from the dead. He had a rejected application. He said, hey, I'm gonna still go talk to this person, try to put myself out there. And, a couple of weeks later, he's getting that offer letter from Workday. So that's one of the things that I would definitely highlight. I always mention whenever I get on anybody's podcast or I'm interviewed, I always tell them that story, because I think it's so important, such a dope thing that happened. So networking is definitely key in 2025, because again, you have to stand out. There's so many people applying to these roles. And some people, again, they may have the experience, so they might just have the experience speak for themselves. But if you're able to talk and sell yourself, because a lot of, being a solutions engineer is presentation, right? So if you're able to sell and show how valuable you are, you're basically doing a product demonstration of yourself, to a client, which is, this interview or this organization that you're trying to work for. So definitely network. I say I might rank that at the top, just because, again, I've never seen somebody get rejected and then still end up with the job. And that was done through networking.
Perfect. We'll leave it there.